And welcome into this edition of Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network. Also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. They're Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. He is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. The Gators and their better roster lose to Kentucky for the second straight year as the Wildcats come into the swamp and win 26-16. I've been waiting for this for a while, Denny.
You've been waiting to prove that Florida's bad like you say they are.
No, that's what
you've been waiting on.
Last week I was told how much better the Gator roster is than Kentucky, and for the second straight year, Kentucky leaves with a W.
Okay, let's back up. We'll make it about this if you want to start it this way.
I'm just saying.
Let's go back 2 weeks.
Yep.
When you said Utah, Florida, Tennessee, everybody's roster is better than Florida's. Florida's roster is terrible.
Well, no, I said starting 22, Florida can compete. The depth is the issue. That's what I said.
That's not what you said.
Well,
we can pull it up.
We can pull it up. You're right.
Graham, next week, can we pull that up? Because he started the Utah thing with that Utah was going to wipe the floor with them.
I thought Utah would win, yeah.
And then it got into the whole roster.
Whatever we like, by the way. I got receipt. Not like right now, but
yeah. I think we should do that. We should do that because Florida did lose on Saturday because they played like absolute absolute crap.
Yes.
That's it.
This is a podcast. There ain't no FCC.
Exactly. They played like shit. All right, that's the bottom line. That's what they played like.
Yeah.
If they play like that again and over and over and over, they will continue to lose. It doesn't matter what their roster is. That was an Anthony Richardson issue. 100%.
Okay, but and because you brought that up, all right, Denny Thompson, weekly announcement, trains Anthony Richardson 6 points. You've trained him for years. Dare I say, you know Anthony Richardson's game as well, if not better, than pretty much anybody on planet Earth. Having said that, all the talk among Gator fans, message boards, media members is that Florida is refusing to run Anthony Richardson on RPOs because there is nothing behind Anthony Richardson with the injury to Jack Miller.
They're wrong.
Okay.
They're wrong. We can stop that now.
There's not a concern about getting Anthony hurt doing that.
No.
Then why is he not running the ball, in your opinion, if you're willing, if you know, or if you...
I do know, and I'm probably not going to say everything because it's nothing. But at the end of the day, Anthony has started 3 football games. Okay? This is a fact. All right? Let's deal in facts here, Gator Nation. Anthony's 3 football games that he has started has been against 2 top 10 teams in Kentucky.
And so 3 top 20 teams.
Right. Those are the 3 games he started. If you go back to the games that he's played significant time in, which would only be because people want to say USF, but that really, I mean, he only played like...
Well, he had the one long run that everybody remembers.
And the 2 passes.
Yeah.
Right? So you're looking at LSU in Death Valley when he came in and literally saved the day. Now, they still got beat, but they were about to get blown out. FSU, where he literally saved the day at home. Georgia, Utah, Kentucky. That's it. That's it. That's all of them, right? In all those games, except for the defense that Georgia had, he struggled. He was okay the first quarter, then he struggled. And then this past week, he's passed with flying colors. Would y'all agree with that? Is that a fact?
As far as...
Yes, I would agree with that.
Outside of those 2 games, every other time that he's been on the field, he's been fantastic.
Yes. But the problem is he looked rattled in the second half.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Okay, so let's think about it like this. So now you have this huge game against Utah. All of a sudden people are saying, this may be the number 1 overall pick, right? We were saying it last week. I'm trying to think of the right way to put this without saying too much. Anthony needs to figure out what he is. Anthony needs to figure out what makes him Anthony Richardson, right? Is it his arm? Is it his legs? Is it a combination of both? Is it we all love Ant because of what we see on the field of him having fun? He didn't look that way Saturday night from jump, right? We all, me included, have talked to Ant about, chill on the back flips, right? Chill on stuff like that. That's Ant. That's Ant. You're taking a piece of his personality away when you start to restrict him having fun. That's what Ant is. Ant is fun, right? He didn't have any on Saturday night. He had no juice, had no fun. He tried to sit back there and play a game that wasn't his style. He missed reads. He missed throws. He didn't run when he probably should have run. It was a bad night. That's it. That's all it is. It was a bad night. If another one pops up, okay, I'll be concerned. I haven't done the research, but my guess is if you went back through top 10 quarterbacks drafted, top 20 quarterbacks drafted in the last decade, my assumption would be that you could find that game in every one of them.
Peyton Manning never beat Florida.
Right. Like that's my assumption. I don't know. Like Bryce Young on Saturday was not good for 3 quarters, right? The difference in Bryce Young and Anthony is nobody's talking about that because Bryce Young led a drive, which Anthony could have done to win the football game.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony did not. Anthony did not answer that call, right? That's all this is. All it is Anthony got into a moment where the weight of the situation was heavy, and he tried to be too serious and be something he's not. That's my opinion, right? I don't think it'll happen again. I think it's a lesson learned. I think it's unfortunate it happened. I hate that it happened. I love you guys. I don't hate that it happened for y'all or any of y'all. I hate that it happened for Anthony, right? Like, I was with Anthony Monday. I promise you, he hates it more than anybody else. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right. And look, I mean, Kentucky is not the 85 Bears, but unfortunately,
Kentucky's not any better than Utah.
They kind of looked like that because the Gator offense was just awful.
It was terrible
in the second half. Just awful.
And listen, the Florida defense was fine.
Yeah.
Until the Florida offense couldn't stay on the field.
You get on the you remain on the field, they're going to wear you down in the running
Florida's
game.
defense played a plenty good enough game to win.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Plenty good enough.
The bottom line is Anthony Richardson, look, from a throwing perspective against Utah, 17 of 24 for $168. Didn't do anything magical. What was magical about the Utah game was the runs and the 3 rushing touchdowns that he had. And then for whatever reason, and the reason the narrative is out there, and again, you know more than everybody else listening. You know more than me right now. But the reason the narrative is out there is people see the Utah game plan, they see Anthony running. People see the Kentucky game, they see Anthony not running. People are trying to connect the dots saying, well, if Anthony goes down, the only available quarterback on Saturday night would have been Jalen Kitna.
I get it, but let me save all of you the time. That wasn't it.
Okay.
That's not it. That will never be it because your job is to win football games.
So why do you think the coaching or the play calling changed?
It didn't.
It didn't?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it looked like it did.
It didn't.
Okay.
It looked pretty different to me.
No, there were Anthony missed reads. I'll just put it at that. I've watched the film. I know the progressions now. It's not like I know their playbook, right? But I have spent time on this. Plenty more time than I probably should have. Napier called a fine game. Right? There were times when Anthony should have just gotten rid of the ball to the right person. There were times when Anthony threw the ball and it was like the pick six. You know, the one pick, like, okay, whatever. That was just a hell of a play by
the defensive end made a ridiculous play.
But it should never happen. Like, even that should never happen. That ball should never get close to him.
Is that because? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
well, you did.
McElroy talked about it in the broadcast.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Shut up for a second.
Yeah.
McElroy talked about it in the broadcast. Like, you need to make that guy hesitate for half a second.
No, so you just throw around him or over him. Like, it's that simple.
Like the little sidearms Mahomes does.
McElroy never made anybody hesitate. I mean, it's what it is. You just don't throw it to him. You don't throw it to where he can get it. It's that simple. We make this game a lot harder. These are people running into each other voluntarily. It's not that hard. The second pick, just a terrible read by Ant.
Yeah.
Just, it's one of those things where, like, that second pick is a great example, too, of playing quarterback so hard because you have to look out and say, hey, that's the route I want pre-snap. And it has to get there so fast. But you also got to have the ability to come off of that, right? So it's like you catch, throw, but in between the time of catching and throwing in that split second, you have to make a decision of, oh, no, that corner squatted. I can't go there. So it's understandable how it happens, but it should never happen at that level.
Let me ask you this. Were wide receivers open?
Yes.
Did the line block well enough?
Yes.
So not to put words in your mouth, you're suggesting, at least to me, that this was on Anthony Richardson.
Not suggesting. I said it when we started.
Okay.
It's on it. Everything could have been better. Everybody could have been better. There weren't people always open, right? They didn't always block. There were enough situations where, at the worst, Florida could have and should have stayed on the field. If I'm nothing else, I'm real about my guys. Everybody's like, you always pump up your guys. No, I pump my guys because I know how good they are, right? I also am consistent when they don't play well. I will tell you why they didn't play well. Anthony had a very bad game. He is perfectly aware of that, right? And Florida fans, by the way, while we're on it, you can save the time DMing me. I'm not reading them. Okay?
Yeah.
Y'all can save that time.
I wasn't going to DM you about Anthony. I was going to DM you about Kentucky doesn't have as good a roster as Florida. But
Hacker was going to DM you that. I just hate to be right.
He didn't need to DM me. We can just read his tweets.
Yes. I was in my feels this weekend between Wolfson losing on Friday night and the Gators and the Jaguars, and I lost a fantasy game.
But
I was having a bad
felt like
week.
you loved every second of it.
I was having a bad week.
Exactly.
Felt like
No, that's the thing, Graham.
It
He
felt like
walked
you were
in
so
here
happy.
smiling, like happy to see me.
like, hell yeah, Kentucky beat Florida.
I am
Like,
happy that I was right. Yeah, because
what?
y'all got on me.
Why are you happy
Y'all
that
got
you're
on me
right?
pretty good last week about Florida's this great team and film
When
doesn't
did
do
we
any.
say that?
You
When did we
always-
say
you always
Florida's a
make it
great
This
team?
is what you said last week,
Yes.
verbatim. That even though there's film on Anthony Richardson now, that's not going to
Okay,
matter.
let's address that.
Kentucky spied him and he didn't run.
Okay, let's address that. Because I'm glad you said that, because I love how y'all cut that out last week to make it sound like I was talking about Kentucky specifically, Graham. And I wasn't. It was
What
a
did I
very
do?
general statement.
What did I
The
do?
soundbite you
The
put on
sound
Twitter.
bite. Y'all kill me with these sound
when
bites.
you were on the Frangie show?
No,
No,
on
here.
here.
Or on here.
Y'all kill me with these sound bites, by the way.
Bro, listen, I give you plenty of time to explain yourself in these clips. I give you like 40,
We're gonna
50
have to play that
seconds
one.
to
Yeah,
say something.
We're going to play that
Well,
one.
let's
back
go.
for it.
What about
Okay.
Anthony?
Okay, well, it's not about Anthony. It's about the way you
The
play
defense,
defense.
yeah.
Okay, 15's a really good player. I don't think 15 was spying him the whole night. I could be wrong on that. They did a good job of mixing up where 15 was, right? They didn't play him second level. Like, he was first level. He'd fall off sometimes. Like, they did it. Mark Stoops, we already know this, is a really good football coach. I'd still feel the exact same way. I don't think if Anthony would have been where he should have been, I don't think that affects Anthony. I still feel that same way. I still feel that there's a handful of teams, not even a handful of teams, there's a handful of athletes that can go, hey, we've got a guy that can stay with 15 step for step, and you're just going to mirror him. Because what you got to understand is when you spy Anthony, you effectively take a guy out of the pass game. You basically take a guy out of the run game, right? Like, his first job is, I need to see what 15's doing. So when I'm talking about that, I'm saying, and this is where we went wrong as Florida fans. My thought was, if you're spying Anthony, then you're taking a guy out of the run game. Florida should gash you, not Anthony. Florida should gash you, right? So what I wasn't saying is that's a terrible plan for Anthony. I'm saying that's a terrible plan for what Florida does.
Well, again, I don't disagree with any of that. My point is, and you're looking at it from a really in-depth point of view. I'm looking at it from a guy sitting on the sofa watching the game. Utah did not have film of Anthony Richardson and Billy Napier's offense.
They knew what he's going to do.
But they didn't have film. And Anthony Richardson was successful.
What do you mean they didn't have film? How didn't they have film?
Anthony Richardson had never played a football game with Billy Napier as his head coach.
Okay.
Factual information.
Okay.
All right. 7 days later, after Kentucky had a game to watch, Anthony Richardson was a lot worse than he was 7 days prior. And to me, does that mean that Kentucky saw something in the Utah game that they used against Anthony
Well, I'm
Richardson?
sure they did. But my point last week, and my point now, and my point to Anthony, is there's guys all over the place with plenty of film still succeeding.
Yeah.
Still doing what they want to do. And if you're the guy that I know you are, then that shouldn't matter. Right? Film shouldn't matter. So if you're not that guy, then it will matter. But if you're the guy that we all think you are, and that Anthony knows he is, then nobody should be able to game plan for you. Nobody game plan for Johnny Manziel. Nobody game plan for Vince Young or Cam Newton or
Mike
any of
Vick.
those guys.
Yeah.
Right? Anthony's got that talent. He's got to play to that level. He's got to get the confidence. He's got to have the fun. He's got to get the swagger back. And that's got to happen this week.
Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. For the highest quality care, you can rely on Southeast Orthopedic Specialists for any orthopedic injury or concern. You can log on to their website by going to se-ortho.com, and you can listen for Southeast Orthopedic Specialist, the good doctor, Kevin Murphy, on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in the world of sports.
Why is Graham laughing at your read?
I have no
Piece
idea.
of paper just
Oh,
kills me.
that is.
It's 4 years old. I don't know what to tell
There's
you.
two things in our lives that we've held on to. Mine is the mic cover that they gave us during COVID.
Yeah, I got mine too.
That's
Yeah.
great. I thought I'd lose it right away. And
This piece of paper. I've had it for 4 years.
the original piece of paper.
The original piece of paper.
It's impressive.
All right, so the rattled aspect of it. Anthony Richardson did look rattled towards the end of that game. This appears to be a get-right game. Look, South Florida's terrible.
Well, let's back up. Anthony was rattled way before the end of that game.
Okay. I mean, because his body language,
Yeah.
not that I'm an expert, but it did not look good.
No.
South Florida's awful. All right.
I haven't watched them, are they?
All due respect to Jeff Scott, who I really like. He was on 1010XL earlier this week. That BYU game, they did not look like they belonged on the field with BYU.
Isn't BYU a top 15 team?
Well, yeah, but South Florida last week was messing around with Howard in the first half.
I haven't watched any of
Yeah,
them.
trust me, they're bad. So this should be a get-right game. The question is, and you said you talked to him on Monday, after a performance like that, where is Anthony Richardson mentally, and how do you feel he'll respond Saturday night?
Anthony's better mentally than he's ever been right now. That's a fact. I talked to him all night Saturday, all day Sunday, and then went down there Monday. He's good. He's good. Like, he realizes now where he went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And, he didn't have to go in and do that press conference at the
Right.
end of it. But he knew. He knew. And is like, if I don't do it now, I got to do it some other time, right? There was nothing to think over. He knew. So I think the realization of that, I think we're all old enough that we've had that happen in our life of, oh, God, okay, my bad, I'm wrong. If I don't fix it, I'm going to keep doing the same crap, right? Anthony now knows what makes him special, what makes him here. It's not, and I'll take some blame for this, and I told Ant this. We trained the entire offseason, I've said it on here, as if you couldn't run, right? Because everybody knew what kind of freak he is on running,
Yeah.
right? So we trained as a pocket passer because that was his weakness. He took that literal the other night and literally stayed in the pocket, right? He knows now, okay, I just need to be fluid and free because he is a crazy fluid athlete.
I guess at some point, Billy Napier or Rob Sale or somebody on the offensive staff on Saturday night, they didn't go up to him and say, 15, oh, you want to run the ball every once in a while?
I don't know the answer to that. I can say this. Billy Napier, Ryan O'Hara, and all those guys are the real deal. The way they handled this whole situation, the way that they've handled it this week in that, hey, we care about the player. I don't know that I've ever seen this at this level in college football.
Really?
Really, really, really impressive. And I mean, I feel the same way about the Florida State staff. Like, I look at staffs as, okay, can my kid play for that staff? And absolutely he can.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a bad performance. Aside from Anthony, really quick, we've got to get into this week's games and look ahead to South Florida, which, again, should be a get-right game. Like you said, the defense was good. It sucks about Ventrell Miller getting injured again.
That's tough.
Yeah, and he's going to officially out for South Florida. Hope he's back for Tennessee. That Tennessee game could be a problem in 9 days. Look, the defense was good. They're a bend but don't break defense. It's 2 weeks in a row. They've bent a lot, but they very rarely have broke. I think the defense through 2 weeks, I'm totally fine with. And if you're saying the wide receivers were getting open, the offensive line blocked well, I think Trevor Etienne is going to be a star in the making. I also really like Montrell Johnson. That's another one, though. All right. And again, I know you're not down there, but no offense to Naquan Wright.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see more Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne out there.
I think you will.
I hope.
I don't know that, but I mean, listen, again, Dylan and Fax, this is their second game with this staff.
Yeah.
It's their second game with this personnel, right? And so we all see what happens on Saturdays. They see what happens Sunday through Friday, too. And the only thing you have to go through is who does, and I have no idea what they're doing in practice, My assumption is Naquan Wright is outperforming the other two in practice. That's my assumption. But once you get enough game film, then at some point you go, okay, then maybe these other guys are better. Maybe when the lights come on, they're just better. So, I think we got to pump the brakes a little bit on that this is just a second game as well.
Do you know when South Florida rolls in anything about Bohannon, the transfer from Baylor?
Very little. Very little.
I remember
He's a talented kid.
I talked to him for Gridiron when I was doing recruiting because he originally was looking at like Arkansas.
Yeah.
And then he ended up at Baylor and things didn't work out there. So he's now at South Florida. The Bulls have scored. They beat Howard 42-20. They lost to BYU 50-21. Look, Florida should have very little problem in this game.
That's not as bad as, man. I thought the way you said it earlier.
I think BYU was up like 47-3 or 47-6 in that game.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Bohannon to make a judgment. Real quick follow up on the receivers. They need to get more separation. When I say they were open, they were schemed open momentarily most of the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there needs to be more separation.
Are they good enough to get more separation?
I hope so. I don't know. And we're not going to find that out this week.
I don't think they are. I'm just going to say it.
They should be. Xavier Henderson is an elite athlete.
But
I don't know what his
say
deal
that,
is.
but we threw him bubble screen after bubble screen after bubble screen, and he gets 5 yards every time.
And Pearsall,
Percy Harvin's in the end zone. When you're talking about elite, Antonio Callaway is in the end zone. When you're talking about elite athletes.
Yeah, no, I got you. But I think Pearsall is the real deal. I still believe that. I do believe the run game is where they're going to be most effective.
Yeah, and look, this should not come as a surprise to anybody. I know Gator fans don't like to hear it, and Gator fans didn't like to read it. Look, all these preseason publications, all these analysts that we've had on this radio station that cover the SEC, former players, media members, etc., when they all told you that Florida's the third or fourth best team in the SEC East, when they all said that Florida's got a depth issue, they're not doing that for their health. They don't get, kickbacks for saying Florida's not as good as maybe some Gator fans want to believe, and I think some Florida fans are beginning to realize that. And look, when they go to Tennessee in 9 days, those people in Knoxville, they smell blood in the water this year.
Well, they smelled blood in the water for the past 2 decades.
Well, but Florida's not the team they have been in the last 2 decades this year.
Okay,
you think Florida's going to go to Knoxville and beat Tennessee?
No. Here's what I'm going to say. The Kentucky loss, as a Florida fan, aggravates me because I don't think Kentucky's better. They didn't have to get into depth. Nobody got hurt, did they? Except for Ventrell Miller.
Well, Tarquin, the tackle.
Michael Tarquin got hurt. Yeah.
But
Kentucky's beat them 2 years in a row.
I get. I'm not arguing with you. Calm down, Hack. It's okay.
Saying,
don't get all huffy.
It's just hard to say Florida's better than Kentucky when they've lost 2 years in a row.
Let me finish.
Please.
I also expect the same thing out of Tennessee. I expect Florida to beat Tennessee. Now, are they going to? Would I bet it? No. But I believe that Florida, outside of Georgia, has a chance in every game. And because you're the University of Florida and we're Florida fans, I expect you to win those games.
Who's the best player on the Gators?
15.
Right. And he's not as good as Hendon Hooker. So with that, you think Anthony Richardson's a better quarterback than Hooker at Tennessee right now, based on what we saw 5 days ago?
Oh, we're based on one game?
Hooker went into Pitt and won.
I just want to be clear. We're based on one game?
Well, he's only started 3 times, Richardson.
Right.
So Hooker last year was good, and this year...
Okay, mate. Okay. There's no use in me even answering this question because your mind's made up.
No, so you think Richardson's better than Hooker, though?
I think he's... I think he's a better prospect. I think he's got better potential. I think he's better. Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. That's interesting to me, I guess.
I think Hooker's really good. And I think he's really good for what they do as well. I think he does a good job getting rid of the ball. He makes good decisions. I actually really like Hendon Hooker to the point to where I have tried to get a hold of that kid for his draft prep. That's how much I like Hendon Hooker. So this is in no way me downplaying Hendon Hooker. I still think 15's special. I know Gator fans don't. I know all of you listening think that one game means that he's absolutely terrible. I get it. You've told me. But I don't believe that.
I don't believe he's terrible. But my point is, we made a lot out of a guy that threw 64 passes last year, that started one game.
We do it every year.
I agreed, and I'm not saying we don't. But, I mean, this guy was getting top 10 mock drafts in the NFL.
Still is.
This guy was talking about as a Heisman Trophy candidate after Utah. And like you said, he started 3 games, one of which was very bad. Actually, 2 of which were very bad. The Georgia game last year and the Kentucky game this year. It doesn't mean he can't rebound, but I get Florida fans.
What did Hendon Hooker do against Florida last year?
I have no idea.
Well, it couldn't have been good, right?
I would imagine it probably wasn't very good. Yeah. And look, and again, it's not an indictment of Anthony Richardson. He hasn't played very much.
No. I was genuinely asking that question because I don't really remember much about that Tennessee game last year.
I mean, it was so many losses ago.
Tennessee played decently well offensively, but Florida scored like every offensive drive. And Florida covered a double-digit spread.
I literally don't remember anything about that game.
I was at the game. That's the only reason I remember.
All right, let's get into some of the games this week. Today's Gator Bytes podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center. They provide an unparalleled level of care all over the Northeast Florida area, Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That also includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. Let's go rapid fire. Florida State, Louisville, Friday night. I hate, using the word hate here, hate Friday night college football. Having said that, the ACC has decided to do it. Florida State, Louisville, who do you like?
Florida State.
You like them to go in and beat Louisville?
Yeah.
Boy, if they go in there and they're 3-0, and they play Boston College next week, who's not very good either. When Mike Norvell starts 4-0, wow, that's pretty good.
They're really well coached.
Yeah.
They're doing a great job.
Norvell got insanely lucky that extra point was blocked. The narrative on him would be very different if they lost that Louisville game after using a toss sweep on third.
LSU?
Yes. You toss sweep on third down that causes a fumble. That was insane that they did that. He got bailed out by that LSU.
So the previous 59 minutes didn't matter?
No, that mattered. But my goodness gracious, if they would have lost that game.
That sweep that's overrated, how poor of a call it was.
It was wide open. He could have walked into it.
Cannot possibly disagree with you more.
If he scores a touchdown, are you talking about why they run a sweep? You're not even. You don't even remember they ran a sweep.
3 yards into the end zone, the kid dropped.
Could not possibly disagree with you more. That toss sweep is the reason LSU went 99 yards to tie the game.
Because it turned into a fumble.
What about the previous 98 yards? What about the previous 98 yards?
What about it? The Florida State drove down there?
Like, I mean, what I'm trying to understand with this is like, and maybe I'm too close to these guys. But I look at that play and I don't look at Norvell. I look at that kid's got to make a play.
You could take a knee.
That kid's got to catch that ball.
You could have taken a knee or hand off to the fullback, run into the pile, kick a field goal, and the game's over.
What if you mishandle the handoff? And that's
what if
Jordan Travis mishandles the snap?
Yeah, Graham, I
disagree
with you, brother.
Irregardless, Florida State's playing well. Yeah,
they are. They're playing better than they have been. Yes, they are. They're playing better than they have been. Yes.
All right, continue.
No, I'm just saying they are playing better than they have been. I was really taken aback by that toss sweep. By the way, I think Florida State's going to beat Louisville too. And I think they're going to beat Boston College. Their problem is going to be NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, Miami. I don't think they're going to beat any of those 4, so I still think you're looking at 6-6, 7-5 for the Noles. Are you thinking higher for Florida State?
I think they win 8.
Wow,
yeah.
If they win 8, then Norvell will be in consideration to me for ACC Coach of the Year.
They need that. They need to win enough to where he gets an extension, so that the recruiting people can stop saying he's about to get fired.
LSU, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Really? I think Mississippi State's pretty good.
Yeah,
doesn't do anything for you.
No.
Will Rogers, 9 touchdowns.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He's a really good player. I mean, Mike Leach dials it up too.
Auburn, Penn State. Boy, Brian Harsin can get a lot of street cred.
Auburn needs this. Like, this is a must-win for Auburn. I watched that game the other night. Like,
against San Jose State.
That was the worst football game.
It's bad.
The only reason why I had it was the same time as Florida, I think. Yeah, it was, because I had a different TV, and we have a quarterback at Auburn. And so I'm watching just to kind of see, and I'm like, oh, my God, they are setting football back 2 decades at Auburn. It's terrible. They have got to play better against Penn State.
Yeah, and that was a heck of a game last year.
Yeah, it was great.
Auburn might be better by default because they don't have Bo Nix there anymore.
Fair.
So we'll see.
Did he have another bad game this week?
No, they put like 70 on some Southern Oregon team.
Okay.
Southern Oregon.
All right, Georgia, South Carolina. Georgia, a 25 point favorite at Williams-Brice Stadium.
This one is enticing to me because I think Georgia's really, really good. South Carolina is Georgia's what Missouri is to Florida. Like almost every other year, it's like, how is South Carolina staying in this game?
Yeah.
Right? Spencer Rattler is not what everybody thinks Spencer Rattler. Or can we all agree on that now? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a reason he was benched. There's a reason he left Oklahoma. Like all that. I don't think South Carolina is as good as what everybody thought they would be, but they're that thorn in Georgia's side every now and then.
That game's always ugly and
it always.
Yeah.
Always. It's like if Georgia has taken the step I think they've taken, which is they're in Alabama's league now, like consistently, then they'll run through them. And if they do, then sorry, SEC, everybody's in trouble.
Georgia probably gets a little bit of a break. That's a noon kick on ESPN, but it'll be appointment viewing.
Oh, they don't get a break.
No, I'm
South Carolina, right?
Right, but I'm saying if that game's at night or if that game's 3:30 on CBS.
They're going to be rocking it. What else they're doing in South Carolina?
Well, you hang out in the red cabooses, I guess.
That's right, the cockabooses.
The cockabooses. Miami goes to A&M. Boy, A&M needs this one after last week. Does Miami go out there and get it done?
I don't know what to think about either one of those teams. I don't know. That's a fun game.
Well, Miami hasn't played anybody
yet. What time is that
yet.
game?
9 o'clock Saturday night.
Yes.
So that game will get over about
awesome.
1 a.m.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's fantastic.
And then finally, Florida South.
Wait, is that ESPN 2?
No, ESPN. Yeah, the funny thing is...
At 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Game day was supposed to be out there. Game day was going to be at Miami A&M. A&M loses. Game day calls an audible and is going to Boone, where App State is playing Troy. So, because App State beat A&M, College Game Day head to App State instead of A&M in Miami.
Game day, that's terrible.
Well, Andrew Gibson's fired up, our resident App State alum in the building. Florida, South Florida finally. Give me a score. Is it close in the second half?
No. I'm going to say 45-14.
Yeah,
45-17.
Yeah, that's funny. I was thinking like 45-20.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Maybe a 2-touchdown game at halftime, but then Florida kind of pulls away in the second half.
I mean, I think Florida, it could be one of those things where the first couple drives, Florida struggles a little bit. Just because listen, there's
there'll be some boo birds out if that's the case.
Who cares? Yeah,
obviously you don't.
No. What does booing do?
Well, I'm just saying. Shows your frustration.
Oh, good for y'all. I'm glad you're getting it out.
Yes.
Go get a therapist. Yeah, it's like I just think Florida's got to find an identity right now, and they want their identity to be running the football. I just think they got to find a rhythm.
What an absolutely spirited Gator Bytes podcast. Let's shake hands. This was good stuff.
Why are we shaking hands?
Because we can have good debate.
I love how last week he didn't want to shake hands.
No, because Kentucky doesn't have as good a roster as
Florida.
Well, you guys,
while we're still rolling, just give each other a big old hug.
No, I'm not doing that. I'll do a fist pound.
We've already shaken hands. Yeah. We're good.
Well, hey, man, I'm going to watch Kentucky, and they're not as good a roster as Florida.
What's
take
your
on
Twitter
Youngstown
handle?
State. At Ryan Green, 1010XL.
I would highly recommend that y'all follow Hack.
I would appreciate that. That would be wonderful.
Highly recommend it.
I enjoy the dialogue on Saturdays and Sundays.
If you're feeling positive about life, he will straighten you out.
We will be back next week to talk about Rocky Top. I guess Hezekiah and all his kinfolk are going to come down from the mountain there in Knoxville as Florida and Tennessee. They're going to shave. They're going to shave their beard, get the French fries out of it, and we're going to
get. Put that on Twitter.
Well, no, I'm just
that
saying.
That would be a much better tweet.
I'm just getting mentally ready to hear
That's
Rocky
this week's
Top.
Soundbite.
Yeah, no. I'm just getting ready to hear Rocky Top.
You would do it to me.
Over and over and over.
No, you would do it to me. And
I'll do it to anybody. Nobody's safe,
You loved
brother.
how last week everybody was like, well, that take didn't last. Like,
because I was agreeing with them, actually, at that point.
So there you go.
We'll be back next week to talk on Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com, and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.